What's up, guys? It's Rob here, and we need to talk about support.com, ticker symbol SPRT, because this stock is actually blowing up. Even today, we're up over 4%, over 5%. And if you take a look at the chart, you can see that we've had a massive rebound on the day, right? It looked like we were going to be moving down lower from 23. We were down all the way below 22, and then we shot up to 26. So now we're just kind of bouncing around in this range between 22 and 26. But there is actually some very good news on the horizon for SPRT, and some great things have happened for it in the recent past. So let's take a look at the longer term chart just to get a little bit of a backstory on this. You can see that we started around $5.81. That was our low in the past 30 days, and we've almost 5x'd from that point. And at one point, we'd actually more than 10x'd when we were at 59.69. And obviously, we didn't end the day anywhere near that. Otherwise, I suspect some institutions may have been in trouble and had to cover some of their short positions. However, we were pushed down quite a bit, and we've just kind of been trading around the $20 to $30 range since then. So what's been going on with SPRT, and how can we make sure that we get some profits on this? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Well, one interesting thing that I've noticed, and I've talked about this in some of my other videos, is obviously the percent of float shorted, 61.93. That's why everyone is interested in this stock, because it's a very high percentage of float shorted. And actually, some other stock tracking platforms suggest that this percent of float shorted is much higher, and I will be using those in some future videos. But for now, Market Watch is good enough, and you can see that that equates to about 6.18 million shares. Now, if you multiply that by the stock price, that's almost 120. It's more than 120 million dollars, and that's not the most significant amount for institutions to be holding in short positions, right? Because institutions typically have billions of dollars, and to actually trigger a short squeeze, the brokerage accounts for those institutions would need to issue margin calls for them. So it's unlikely that, as of right now, if we just increase by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%, that we're actually going to trigger any real short squeezes. I think that this stock would need to double, triple, maybe even quadruple to really start putting pressure on those institutions who have shorted this to close out their short positions, because they have so much capital behind them that they can just hold those losses until other people sell and the stock price declines, and then they can close their short positions when they've made a profit. So that's what they're hoping for. However, there are a lot of pressures for SPRT to go up potentially, right? If we look at the options open interest, if we look at the open interest call options, we can see that there are some significant price points where we could potentially be seeing a bit of a rise, right? If we can get SPRT much closer to $30, closing the days around $30, around September 17th is when those options expire. There are about 21,000 open interest call options, and that could create some real buying pressure for this stock from some institutions that would then have to hedge against the call options that they've sold. When an institution sells a call option, they're essentially offering to sell someone 100 shares of the stock. So 21,000 multiplied by 100 is actually 2.1 million, I believe, if I'm doing my math right. So they would have to be buying about 2.1 million shares of stock to cover just those options, and there are some, many below that price. So by September 17th, if we could get this thing moving up, that would be very bullish for SPRT looking forward. Now, something else that I've noticed, and something that's actually very beneficial for the short squeeze, is SPRT on Google Trends, right? You see that, obviously we are making higher highs most days. We're being talked about more on Google, and people are searching for SPRT more. But what's actually interesting is when you compare it to other meme stocks like BBIG, which I know a lot of people are interested in, we're not quite as high on the on Google's radar as they are. Not as many people are searching for SPRT, and that leads me to believe that not as many people are involved in this short squeeze as are in BBIG. And that's actually very good for SPRT, because we're going to need a lot of upwards pressure to get this thing moving, right? Because of what we talked about with the short interest, institutions are going to need this thing to be a lot more expensive before they start getting margin called. So the fact that not as many people are talking about this as are talking about other meme stocks is actually really beneficial, because if as many people or more were talking about SPRT, that would mean that most of the momentum had already been spent, and that there weren't that many people to tell about this and get their capital involved and actually raise the price with. So the fact that there are some people who have not yet heard about it, and actually quite a few people who have not even heard of SPRT or considered trading it, and potentially some who are just waiting for a little bit more momentum to get behind it before they actually put in some significant capital, that's very bullish for this stock. I think that we could start moving up, especially if this thing is better publicized on Reddit, Wall Street Bets, and that could really be a good thing for SPRT. Now, I will say something important for for any investor really, especially new ones who aren't that experienced and who haven't done this in the past, and maybe this is their first couple of trades and they're just looking to make a massive profit on this. There are some tips and tricks that I have that I've learned over the past that I can tell you right now. And probably the two most important, I'll start with this. The first one is you have to have some kind of stop loss, right? Because a lot of people aren't considering where they're going to end their trade if it goes south, right? They think that they'll just diamond hands this thing, and that can actually lead to some significant losses. And I'm not telling people to sell. I'm not telling people to sell right now. Right now, this actually looks fairly bullish. The fact that we've held the $20 support level looks very good on the chart to me. But there is a point at which you would have to say, all right, maybe the short squeeze has failed. And you'd have to decide that price point for yourself. Maybe $14 or $8 looks good to you. Just depending on what your personal risk tolerance is. If this thing really starts crashing, then the likelihood of a short squeeze becomes less and less. So you have to consider where you're going to cut your losses so that you're not just bag holding this into an abyss, essentially, right? You don't want to hold this thing to zero. And maybe you do. Maybe you want to hold this thing to zero, but you have to actually say that to yourself. And if you're not willing to hold this thing to zero, then you have to come up with a price at which you want to sell for a loss because you don't think it's going to happen anymore. You have to come up with that in your mind, and it oftentimes helps to actually mark it down on some kind of chart or charting platform like what I have here. Thinkorswim with TD Ameritrade, that's a good one to do this on. Now, what's even more important than that, though, because obviously some of your trades are going to turn to losses, so it's important. But what's more important than that is actually marking down where you're going to take your profits. And you have to decide this, based off of how likely you think this is to go up, how much of a conviction you have on it. And maybe you think this thing's going to 100, and then you mark that on your chart and you say, all right, at $100, I'm out. I'm selling at 100 because I think it's going maybe a little bit higher, but I don't want to be caught at the very top, and potentially I might miss the top by a little bit, so I'll just sell at 100, right? Maybe you think it's going to 200, and that's where you want to sell. But I think that a lot of people end up getting very overzealous with these stocks, especially, in the past with GME and AMC. People were holding GME when it was around $480, and now it's around $180. And, I bet they wished that they would have taken some profits at 480, maybe bought back in if they still believed in the play, if they still thought it was going much higher. But you have to accept that, maybe this thing doesn't go up all in one pump. Maybe the institutions have some mechanisms that they can use to push this thing down from time to time and, to scare people out, essentially, right? But you want to be catching your profits on the way up. You want to be getting your profits on good momentum when you're moving up and are reaching higher highs. So you don't actually want to be selling during the crash. You want to be buying when the stock is crashing. And, that's what I think about it. I think that it's very important to figure out a point where you're going to take profit. So that's what I have for you guys today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then consider liking and subscribing. And one more thing, actually, before I go, I will show you this. If anyone is interested in getting some extra capital to trade SPRT with, or any stock, what you can do is go to pretty much any one of my videos, and there is a Webull referral link that you can click on. Gets you free stocks. You get one free stock when you open up the account. You don't have to deposit any money or do anything, and you get a second free stock when you deposit about $5. I think the first one's worth up to 300 rather, and the second one's worth up to 2,000. So you can use this link. There are a bunch of other links that I have that you can use, and a bunch of brokerages. Just this is a resource I put together for you guys to get you free stocks if you're interested. So that's what I have for you guys today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Consider liking and subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.